Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel and or podcast wherever you are watching or listening from. Just yesterday morning I had the absolute honor of speaking with the man, the myth, the legend, Jonathan Young. One of the original, he calls himself second wave, but one of the original big YouTube stars that really made a killing making these incredible rock and metal covers of Disney villain songs, other popular rock music. Absolutely insanely talented vocalist and singer, and we get into his whole career, his approach to vocal technique, his background, his family background as a family of musicians. We talk a lot about what it's like to be a big creator on YouTube. How you strike the balance between doing what you want to do as an artist, but also, pleasing the audience that you've built up over all the years. It was really interesting to get his take as one of the big creators in that field. We're talking over 2 million subscribers on YouTube and has literally been on the top charts in the world for original rock music. So you can't talk to a better guy about, what's happening in YouTube, how it's evolved over the years, and we get into all of that. Really cool guy, such just an immensely talented and smart person, and it was really cool to finally, really have a long one-on-one with him after having, collaborated with him on projects in the past, namely our cover of Centuries by the Bass King that featured Jonathan Young's absolutely insane vocals. So it was really cool, really fun, really a great opportunity to talk with him, and I am 100% sure you guys are going to love this conversation. So please put your hands together for and welcome Jonathan Young. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel and or the podcast, wherever you are watching or listening. Today we have the fucking awesome, incredible Jonathan Young. It is such an honor to have him here, and I'm going to pass the torch to him and let him give a little elevator pitch as to who he is and what he's up to these days.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jonathan Young. You might know me from my YouTube channel, but I've been making music on the internet for 10 years, full time. Independently built up 2 million fans, doing cover songs, original music, songwriting, music production, singing, all sorts of stuff. Most people know me for my metal covers of songs from nerd pop culture sort of stuff, but more recently I've been doing a lot more original music. I have a fantasy pirate metal album called Starship Velociraptor that has a little bit of a cult following now, and of course partnered with a couple video game brands and big franchises. I've worked with Dragon Ball, I've worked with Beyblade, Magic the Gathering. Yesterday I teamed up with Baldur's Gate to release a new song for their new game release today. So doing all sorts of music content creator stuff on the internet constantly, and that's about it.
Awesome. Very nice elevator pitch.
Thank you.
I want to get into kind of what started it all, like pre YouTube, pre making your own stuff. Like, did you go to school for music? Do you have like formal musical training or what? How does that all shake down?
Yeah, so I have a super musical family. My dad was a choir director for many years, and my mom's entire family, we would like sing Christmas carols 4-part harmony every year at my grandma's house and stuff like that. So and drummers and singers and guitar players in the family. So we it was always like a really integrated part of my childhood, and I took classical piano lessons for a while as a kid. I actually took cello for a while. I was in orchestra. I have a cello somewhere in one of my guitar closets. And then I was in choirs. I took a bunch of music theory courses. I am self-taught on guitar and drums. But as many people, musicians listening to this podcast might know, it's once you've learned like piano and music theory, it's kind of a slippery slope to just start teaching yourself other instruments, especially if they're not wind instruments. So yeah, so I don't take very much credit in terms of like I was very, very lucky and privileged to have kind of a fast track with my family to learn music super quickly and have it be a big part of my childhood. And I went to a music school, a music college after high school, and I was only there for a year before I dropped out. I was studying music theory and lyric writing. Um, and my main like composition instructor, like he like pulled me aside about halfway through the first semester. I had like tested out of a bunch of music theory courses already at the college because I had taken music theory throughout high school and been self-taught on all these things. And he pulled me aside. He was like, John, just move to California and just do it. Like don't be here. Like he was like, John, you are gonna be fine. You need to not go $200,000 into debt right now.
Yeah.
Like you don't need this you don't need this school to give you a certificate to be a rock star. You can just get out there, move to Nashville or Memphis or move to LA and do it. Um, so I took his advice and I dropped out of college and played in uh played in dive bars for a while, trying to attract the attention of whatever record labels I foolishly thought would have scouts in dive bars in Minnesota. And when that, of course, definitely did not work, I started looking for ways to make money with my skill set, and started seeing people making cover songs on YouTube. And I was like, hey, I could buy a Canon DSLR for $200 at Best Buy and take a crack at this and probably make some money. And here we are.
Here we are. Yeah, definitely made a little bit of money doing that.
Yeah.
So living on a prayer for a while, and then you were like, let's think about it and find something practical that you can kind of pull
Yeah.
off.
It was always very like it was always very practical and calculated for me. I wish that I had more of a like emotional sob story, but it's really just my family and my upbringing has been training me to be a well-oiled music machine since a very, very young age. So I'm very lucky for that.
What was the first project you put out on YouTube?
It was oh God. I think it was a pop punk cover of a Kesha song. And it was so bad, Peter. It was so bad. I didn't know that you could buy like drum VSTs, like drum samples.
Yeah.
So I was like, and I didn't have enough microphones to mic up my whole drum set, and I didn't have a treated room. So I was like accidentally sampling my own drum, and I was like recording a single hit of my own like garage band snare drum and like chopping it up in Cubase or something to try and yeah, it was, man, I learned real quick though. I learned but yeah, the first couple covers, I think it was my third cover that really like blew up the career. I think I did a Kesha cover and I did a Katy Perry cover because I was seeing everybody do, like, back then in like the first wave of YouTube cover artists, it was all like doing genre swapping covers of pop songs back then.
Yeah. Okay.
Back in like 2013, it was like Taylor Swift would come out with a new song and there would be like 10 different, they would be like within a week or 2 weeks, it was like acapella version, acoustic version, rock version. It was like and now it's weird now because like the internet has kind of decentralized everything, and like back then people were still listening to the radio.
Yeah.
But now it's like the same kids on the internet who were listening to my covers don't even know what's in the pop song zeitgeist. So I'm glad I got out of doing pop songs. But yeah, it was a Kesha cover, a Katy Perry cover, and then I'll Make a Man Out of You from Mulan. And that I posted that on Reddit and it took off. And I woke up the next day with 7,000 subscribers. And I was like, okay, here we go. Doing it.
Wow. That's amazing.
From like 50. It was like 50 friends and family subscribed. And like 7,000 doesn't sound like a lot now, but when it's like, when it's overnight, when it's like, oh, One day
Yeah.
I have 50 subscribers, the next day I have 7,000, and I wake up to like hundreds of notifications, and I've never, you know.
Yeah, that first viral moment. But
Yeah.
even now, I mean, getting 7,000 subs in a day is a good day.
Yeah, that's a good day.
That's a really good
For
day.
anybody. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
real. Do you still have those projects up if people dig far enough back?
I got rid of the Katy Perry cover and the Kesha cover.
Okay.
I was too ashamed, but the I'll Make a Man Out of You cover is still up, and it really showcases how bad I was at music production, and how far I've come since then. Because I can't. I mean, people would yell at me so much because that one has, like, let me check. Yeah, this is at, I think, 5 million views.
Yeah, you
Eight
got to keep
eight
it up.
million 8 million views. Yeah,
So
can't
that's still a huge
get rid
hit.
of that one.
No,
Yeah.
that's wild. I mean, you really are one of the kind of OG YouTubers in that way.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, 10 years, goddamn.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
how have you seen the kind of YouTube landscape change and evolve from when you started? And do you find yourself doing anything differently to kind of keep up with that
Oh
evolution?
yeah. Oh yeah. I see myself as the second wave of music
That-
content creators on the internet. Or at least I in my head, it makes sense in my head. I like there's this first wave of like people figuring out what you could do, like figuring out like what YouTube was. And so you had like Linkin Park AMVs, you had like basically like the ancestor of the modern day like music production Twitch streamer, or like DJ Twitch streamer, where you'd have like a hip hop producer that would like make a beat on their dinky little drum machine and post like a video of them doing that to YouTube.
yeah.
And then there was this wave of musicians like Boyce Avenue, Peter Hollins, Lindsey Sterling, this first wave of people where what I remember thinking about a lot at the beginning was that everybody was like, there was like an arms race of professionalism where everybody was trying to go bigger, and like, I guess like you could think of it like vertical scaling with their videos. Like they'd spend 3 months like arranging and producing and shooting and editing a crazy cinematic high quality video, and then
Yeah.
they'd post it on YouTube and it would get 10 million views. And it was great. But something interesting about that to me is that they were emulating the traditional music industry. They were trying to like go for the grandeur and polish of what you would see from like a band,
MTV or something.
yeah. So it was all about professionalism. It was all about, you make a ton of money on a YouTube video, and then how can you invest that money into hiring more cameramen and hiring better video editors.
Yeah.
And then I came along in the second wave, as I see it, and then it was about, okay, there's already these people like the Boyce Avenue and the Kurt Hugo Schneider and Lindsey Sterling and all these people who, by the time I started, they were already touring, like doing nationwide tours. And I saw Lindsey Sterling in concert
Oh wow.
when I was like 18 in like probably 2012 or something. And she was already huge at that point. And I come in and it's like, okay, I can't do that yet. I don't have the resources or the money to do a tour. I don't have the resources or the money to do a crazy drone video. And especially in 2012, you can't go to Best Buy and buy a drone in 2012.
Yeah.
So we can't do any of that. So what do we do? So then there was kind of this wave of like myself and a lot of the people that I work with, where we started trying to figure out ways to be more scrappy without losing some of the polish. So then it became like, okay, how can I put up a backdrop in my garage in a way that looks really clean, and put up some construction lights, and film a video that looks good but cost $50 to make, right?
Yes.
so that was fun, and learned a lot, learned how to edit videos myself, and did it all on a shoestring budget. um and then there was the dreaded algorithm shift that changed everything from views to watch time and viewer retention. And that put even more pressure on musicians and all artists to pump out content as quickly as possible, because it was more about how regularly you were putting stuff out than it was about the quality. And a lot of these people in like sort of this first and second wave of content creators really struggled with that, because they had been really pushing to try and make bigger, better, cooler videos that took more time and more money to make. And now here comes YouTube, and then very quickly after Instagram and Vine, and now TikTok, that are like, okay, well, like we don't want you to make a 5-minute long epic video. We want you to hold somebody's attention for 30 seconds. And since then, it has kept going in that direction in such an extreme way, as I'm sure that since you're much more TikTok savvy than I am, probably. But
I wish. I tried TikTok for a little while and then gave up.
That's fair. But yeah, it's now it's interesting and cool to me in a lot of ways that like there's a different platform for every different incentive now, and it used to not be like that. It used to be very limited in your platform choices. So you can be making these very short, snappy, 30-second long, kind of the musical version of an elevator pitch, kind of, and
right.
hook somebody on your voice or your songwriting or your wit in 30 seconds, and keep grabbing people that way on TikTok, and then try to leverage that into Spotify streams and money. Or you can go on YouTube, you can try to put out a more polished, finished MTV style weekly music video or whatever, and do it that way. And then there's even some people that use YouTube as a proxy for Spotify now, where they'll just make a playlist on YouTube, and that's one of the biggest ways that YouTube, I think, has changed, is that we found with a lot of, I produce for some other people as well, and we found with a lot of the people that we work with that it doesn't even matter what the video is anymore. You can just put the album art up, and if the song is good enough, or if you just have like some cool art or a visualizer or something, or a lyric video, the video itself doesn't actually matter on YouTube as a musician, as much as getting people to stay to actually watch that whole video.
That is shocking. I would think a video would have a lot more audience capture than even a cool graphic.
Right. Well, that's the thing though, is that like with any other type of content on YouTube, like, and this is strictly for like song content. I mean, like obviously if you're playing video games or doing a podcast or something like that, it's totally different. But
right.
But if you're posting a song, a lot of times people they'll open up YouTube on their TV or on their phone, and they'll be like, oh wow, Jonathan posted a new song. They know it's a song because they know that I only post songs, so they'll put it on, and then they're not looking at it, they're just listening. So in that way, they're kind of using YouTube as a stand-in for Spotify, and then your goals end up really changing, where it's less about making a compelling video edit and less about doing this crazy grandiose drone shots and cool editing and stuff, and more about just get them to click on the thumbnail and then have a good song, and then you're set. And then of course there's Twitch and all these other things, and it's crazy, man. Like you really have to be smart about like how where you're aiming your content, because every platform is going to like digest that content differently, and the meta game of all these different platforms and how they're changing. Like now, like shorts, like YouTube is trying so hard to be TikTok that it's normal videos on YouTube are really not doing as well. Even just this past year, it's changing.
So when you're approaching a new song, I mean, like writing a hook in a song has been around since music has been around, but have you found yourself more trying to get something in those first few seconds that really hooks the audience?
Yeah, I think about that a lot. My team and I sometimes call it a TikTok moment, where like we'll kind of like we'll pick a part of the song that we know is going to be the 30-second clip, whether it's the first part of the song or like a chorus later on. But also like making sure that we don't have any crazy minute-long ambient intros, like making
Right.
sure that like something interesting musically is happening right from the get-go.
Yeah.
So thinking about your listeners' attention as a commodity that you have to like spend wisely. um it's weird and it sucks a lot sometimes, and people will, a lot of artists that I work with will justifiably be very, very like irritated and frustrated, and they'll kind of moan and groan about like, I shouldn't have to keep their attention. I want to have a 3-minute long ambient post,
Just pure atmosphere.
yeah, pure atmosphere for 3 minutes before the rock music comes in,
Yeah.
or whatever. And it's like, well, yes, in a perfect world, you'd be able to express yourself however you want. And you can do it. You still can do
Yeah,
that.
you are allowed to do
But
that.
yeah, like that was always allowed. But like you're complaining because people don't like that.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's I don't know.
You gotta
it's weird.
throw that in the middle of the album once you've
Yeah,
hammered people with epic music for
yeah.
20 minutes.
Well, and that's the thing though, is that like I think that maybe there is a way to sell that. Maybe there is a way to like go on TikTok and be like I don't know if you've seen those like the vibe videos where it's like POV, you're
I
sitting
think I have
outside
a
in the
couple of them.
sunset, and then it's just a cute little
Yeah.
song. But I don't know. It's weird, man. Like my perspective has changed so many times about like what the best way to win is playing the content creator game, doing music. But
Yeah.
what it all boils down to is uh it all boils down to like, who are you trying to get to listen to this, and how can you get them to like it and stay, like
Yeah.
it. And that goes for whatever platform it is, because and so sometimes like that first part, that who are you trying to get to listen, that's important too, because if you're, you know if you're trying to, if you've developed a fan base that likes a certain thing, and then you try to do something else, if you or even just platform to platform, um like YouTube tends to like different genres than TikTok does, uh and there's like different strategies of like trying to target certain groups on different platforms. But it's all just that psychological question of like, um how do you get the right people to see this and stick around.
Yeah.
But
It's
anyway,
also, I
I'm
mean, like
rambling.
making a lot of covers and original music as well. It's seems like it's partially how do you satisfy the mob while staying true
Yeah,
to your artistic integrity.
yeah,
How have you kind of interfaced with that? I mean, it seems like some of your most popular videos have been like Disney metal covers, right? But then you
right.
also have this original music you're making. Do you find that you're still getting a lot of support on the original stuff, in comparison to the Disney metal covers, or whatever has kind of gotten you the biggest chunk of your following?
Yeah, it's actually changed throughout my career. And I think part of why it changed is because I'm not as naive as I used to be about how to approach releasing original music. But the internet culture also has changed. Like at the beginning, like I do enjoy doing Disney covers. I like Disney songs. They're really well written and usually like melodically interesting and all these different things. Lyrically really well written.
Yeah.
So I like doing Disney covers, but for like the first half of my career, covers were 100% just, I need to please the mob and make money. And I was always like super transparent about that. I would occasionally like lose focus and cover a song that wouldn't be as popular, but when it came down to it, it was always okay. Like what choice of cover song is going to do the best with my anime and Disney loving fans.
Yeah.
But then a lot of those kids kind of, just to speak to my own fan base, but I hope that people can like think about how this could kind of apply to other fan bases as well. But like, what I feel like happened is these teenagers who are listening to Disney covers and AMVs and anime openings on YouTube, they grow up and then they watch Critical Role for the first time and they start playing D&D and they start listening to bardcore music, and they like there's you can kind of like trace like the zeitgeist of like this age bracket of kids growing up and how their interests are kind of evolving into different spaces. Because what ended up happening is like I would release original music that would flop all the time because I was treating it like, oh, well, this is just my original song. But as soon as I started treating it like this is my original song that has a video that reads like an anime and my fans love anime, and there's characters that are kind of like Disney characters and the lyrics are written kind of like a Disney song and the music is kind of like an anime opening, and the branding like it's not just a binary between originals and covers being two types of content. And I used to get that wrong. It's more about like, if I know that my fans love Disney, if I know that my fans love anime, how can I dress up originals in a way that will hook that group of people?
Yeah.
Right. And I didn't know how to do that for a long time. And Starship, the Starship Velociraptor album that I did in 2021 was like the first time where it started to click. And I was like, oh, there's a way where I can maneuver here and make the original music really like clickbaity to my fan base specifically. And now more recently we're doing like some folk sort of bard Dungeons and Dragons adventure kind of music. And when we stop to think about like, what do we put in the thumbnail, how do we write this in a way that it'll make D&D fans click on it, because all of these same anime and Disney people who found my channel are now listening to sea shanties on TikTok. How do we weaponize that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now because of that, covers are actually really doing badly for me lately.
Really interesting.
Yeah. And I think part of it is because I leaned into that change a lot, and I started, as soon as I caught wind that my fans might like a sea shanty for many of the same reasons why they like Disney and anime music.
Yeah.
Because we're all nerds.
Yep.
I leaned into that really hard, and then I started getting these influxes of like Dungeons and Dragons fans coming into my channel, and then I just do a Linkin Park cover and they're like, what is this? This isn't what I signed up for.
Yeah.
I've been talking with my management and my production team about just making the decision to almost entirely stop doing covers, other than like Disney and sometimes some sea shanty stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, you're at that level now for sure, where I think you can fully probably branch into doing your own stuff, which I assume is kind of the end goal, right?
Oh yeah.
Like fully fledged, like purely original music that does just as well as anything you've ever put out there. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there is another side to that discussion about how there's so like the barrier of entry is so low for like buy a mic for $50 and then sing into your phone camera that I which is good. That's a net positive for society. But for cover artists, it means that there's so many people making metal covers of popular songs right now that or like singing old like Linkin Park or My Chemical Romance songs or whatever it is. There's so many people doing it now that I think it's a little bit like I think culturally we are a little fatigued by YouTube and TikTok cover songs right now, unless you do it in a really uh unique way. So I would almost say that um I would almost say that originals are just like a better investment right now. Like if you can find a way to be super compelling with like how you're sort of marketing an original, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
um yeah, I don't know, man. It's always
Yeah.
changing. It's always changing, and I'm
Continues to be
always,
the Wild West
yeah,
out
always
there on
thinking about
YouTube.
it.
I noticed you've done some like you mentioned kind of getting some of like the animated crowd, like those fans, and I noticed
Yeah,
you've done some videos that are fully animated
yeah,
music videos, which is awesome. That's like always something
thank you, man.
that's like huge like end goal for me is be part of an animated series or voice an animated character or something, because there's just something so cool about it. So how did you go about that? How did you like, who's the team that you hired to do that? And then I mean, how much input did you have on, what it looks like and all that stuff? I'm super interested to hear all about that process.
Yeah, so that was kind of like part of all of this that I've been talking about, with like trying to find a way to make the originals appealing to sort of the like very hard to catch attention span of everybody on the internet.
Yeah.
um at the time I didn't have management, and I wasn't really working with much of a team, so I kind of just blasted out looking for independent animators. And there's so many things that I would do differently if I did it again, because it was very um like some of the animators were flawless and did amazing work. We had some other animators that like completely flaked on us after we paid them a bunch of money. There were like a whole bunch of there's a huge range of like projects where everything had a happy ending versus projects that like got completely destroyed and horrible
Yikes.
And wasted a ton of money. And part of that is because of the nature of animation is very expensive.
Yeah.
On average, we spent I spent between like 6,000 and 15 to 20,000 per video, because the animation is so expensive and time consuming, and
Yeah.
some of the videos took literally over a year to animate. And part of that is because I gave each song to a completely independent animator. A couple of them were done by like a duo or a team. But yeah, I mean they're hand drawing every frame, and it was awesome. It turned out great. Some of the videos did really, really well. But then you kind of, I guess, at least where my mind goes is like, what can we do better next time? And was it worth it? Because like artistically, some of it turned out absolutely incredible. And I wasn't involved. I didn't want to be involved in that at all, other than like, uh, the starting concept.
Yeah.
Like I had some ideas for like these different like characters that would be in the band, but a lot of that was like in the lyrics of some of the songs anyway, so it was kind of baked into the idea. But other than that, most of these animators, I was like, hey, make a video, uh here's the concept, do your thing. Like,
Yep.
I'm not going to touch it. And I'm glad I did it that way. But then um there's questions like, okay, if the video got this many plays and the song got this many plays, we're not breaking even on a lot of these videos, right? We're not making 20-30,000
Yeah.
dollars on some of these songs. Other songs, maybe when we get really lucky, maybe we'll make a lot of money on one of these songs if it does really well. But if it doesn't break even, then we're gambling huge amounts of money on these lavish sort of vertical investments. And then if you want to hone in your branding more and have like the same characters and the same animation style across every video, and if you want to meet the deadlines of the TikTok algorithm and put music out all the time, then you're looking at okay, we have to hire multiple animation teams who are all like centrally communicating with each other, and then we need to have contracts for all these animators that allows us to protect ourselves in case more of them flake on us, and we have to, you know, we have to be spending so much money on getting these videos done that um it ends up being a huge like business liability to try and basically do what I tried to do for that project. So I don't know if I would recommend it, but I mean, it was still super fulfilling, and I'm still like, I'm glad that I did it, all things considered. But I'm trying to come up with ways that I can kind of have the same aesthetic uh in terms of like having like super cool and unique characters that kind of tell this story visually throughout the song without spending $20,000 on a fully animated video. So then it becomes about like, can we do like an animatic? Can we do like still images of these characters that we kind of turn into like a sort of we do like a video made up of like GIFs or whatever. So we have different ideas like that, but it was a crazy project, and some of it paid off, some of it didn't.
I would think
we learned a lot.
It's a two-part question. Is it worth it, right? Because like artistically worth it? Is it fulfilling? Does it help your brand? Does it look good for you and the channel and your team and everything? And then there's did we actually make money off it?
Right. And we learned a lot too. We learned a lot about like, if we ever do have 10 grand to throw around, if we do a sponsorship or anything like that, we know how to do it the right way now. But that it's each lesson that you learn opens more doors that have more questions behind them. Like, okay, not like, first it was, can we do it? First it was, can we make all of these independent animators do these music videos and have it work? The answer, kind of yes. But then now we're faced with this new question of like, can we make a more budget friendly version of a similar sort of branding for the music videos? And then the follow-up question is, will the fans like it? Will the fans still, are we losing the magic that captured people into blasting those songs if we don't do the full animated video? And there's only one way to find out, you know. But it's wild.
I would think these animation projects, especially when you're talking about getting them done faster and hiring more and more people so you can like churn things out faster, I would just think I can't even imagine the viewership you would need to like make that back if you're talking tens of thousands of dollars for each of these projects and multiple projects.
It's crazy, man, because like so much of like, as soon as you get, this is something that I like don't talk about much when I like, usually when I'm doing like Q&As, or because like so many people want like the intro level questions of like, how do I get fans? How do I, you know what I mean? Like, how do I mix my vocals? How do I like, there's all these like barrier of entry questions that people always ask. But then there's this like next level of questions that you hit of like, how do I decide which of my large project investments are worth it when answering that question requires me to kind of put, whether it's a money value or some kind of quantifiable value, when I have to think about like branding, how much is my branding worth to me? My production value, how much is my production value? Like, because for example, sorry, this is a crazy tangent, but
go for it.
like we basically learn like the reason why we stopped doing such fancy videos as a team is partially because we would have weeks where we would phone it in and do a cheaper, faster video, and then that video would blow the fuck up, you know. And it's like, okay, so maybe we shouldn't care so much about having a nice video editor or having somebody who's really good at cinematography. If the fans just want to watch me sing, then why would we complicate that, right? And then I work with some people like Caleb Hiles and Anna Pantsu are two amazing singers that I work with all the time. And half of their videos, all of Anna's videos and half of Caleb's videos, it's just like a cute little like art piece of them dressed like the character or the style that they're singing in, and then lyrics. And then it becomes, okay, if the fans don't care if we're on camera, then why would we ever take the time to lip sync on camera if we don't
Yeah.
need to
Yeah.
show ourselves on camera? But then you have to put a value on that. You have to ask yourself, do I want to be the type of content creator on YouTube who never shows my face because my fans just want to see me, or not see me, my fans just want to hear me sing their Disney song with lyrics, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
so there's the, and that's like the best piece of advice that it took me so long to realize. And I always push like my friends who are comfortable like bouncing ideas off of each other in the content creator space. The thing that I always push them on the most is like, do your fans really care if you do this extra step? Like, do you need to have such a complicated edit for your video? Or would your fans be okay with you pulling out your iPhone and doing it in one take? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and if the fans don't care, then how much money are you losing because you care? If you have this pretense in your head of, well, I need to have a fancy video because I want my peers to think that I'm professional. If that's what it is, or whatever your pretense may be, can you really sit down and justify it to yourself if you can put a number value or a time value is the other thing. Like, how many hours do you have to spend every week to get that extra? So money, time, and then opportunity cost. Like, if you know that it takes you 2 days to make a rock cover of a song, and then it takes you three days to do all the video editing that you need, you could have made a whole other cover if you did a different video format. You know what I mean? Like, you could literally double your music output. So, but those are tough choices because people want to look good. People want to feel professional, and
yes.
Pride pride is one of the biggest career killers that I see in the content creator space, because it just leeches away all your time when you're trying to look a certain way or whatever.
But I was chatting with Lauren Paley for the channel like 6 weeks ago or so, and she was talking about how she was thinking about like upgrading all the quality of her stuff, and I was like, Lauren, it's working now. Like, you pull out your iPhone and your videos go crazy. I was like, do not upgrade until you need to. Like, if it's working, because the second you go from a raw iPhone video to a whole process behind it, like Bobby's videos on TikTok, for example, he'll do like and he's been vocal about this, so I feel comfortable saying it. It's a whole thing. He'll like record in the studio and he'll go back and lip sync and make it look like it's a raw TikTok video, which a lot of people do now.
Yeah.
And Lauren doesn't do that. She just pulls out the iPhone, takes a video, and I mean, it is probably 5% of the time.
Yeah.
Or less.
Yeah.
Like, if you can do that, just keep doing that.
Yeah.
Fans like it just as much.
Yeah, because I mean, anytime that you add extra steps, it's like Lauren could probably, I mean, and this is obviously Bobby's a friend of mine as well, so I don't mean this as a slight to him, but Lauren could probably output like 5 times as many TikToks as Bobby can, or do it in a fifth of the time or whatever. And sometimes, like, what's it worth to you? You know what I mean? It's like if you, because then, I mean, I guess the trade-off, this is my mad scientist content creator brain, like, goes off anytime somebody like poses sort of a hypothetical like this, because then the question is, and I've mentioned this to Bobby too, and a lot of the other people that I've worked with, that's just a question of TikTok output, but you can't really make money natively on TikTok. So then, in addition to the question of how much time are we spending editing our TikToks, how much time are we spending on production value for our TikToks, do the fans care if it's just an iPhone video of me singing with no auto-tune? Would the fans like it more, or is there some kind of professionalism X factor that we care about with auto tuning and lip syncing and getting the right angles and all these different things? That's just within this bubble of making the TikTok videos themselves, and you haven't even made any money yet, right? Then you once you've figured out what your TikTok process is, now you have to figure out what is the content that I'm going to monetize. Am I going to put out, because for musicians, I get a little heated about this sometimes. For musicians, basically, my perspective is that if you are a content creator on the internet making music and you're not putting out at least one song a month on Spotify, you are literally just throwing money in the toilet. Because there's at least if your content is you singing or you playing an instrument or whatever, doesn't apply to, obviously,
the main thing.
If you're doing reactions or podcasters or
right.
interviews or whatever, it's obviously a different story. But if your content is you singing or playing guitar or something, but then you have a whole other bubble of like perfectionism and branding and all these things, because I know singers and guitarists who, and I'm sure that some of these people that you've talked to from TikTok are the same way, where they could literally record a voice memo on their phone of them singing like a siren, Irish folk song or something, and there is a world where they could airdrop that voice memo to their computer and upload it to Spotify, and it would get millions of plays and they would make thousands and thousands of dollars. But then you have to get over that pride of, this is a voice memo that I recorded on my iPhone. But then, and I'm not saying like, I'm not saying that this is necessarily the right answer, but like, I've seen it happen. I've seen people download a free karaoke track and sing into Audacity and staple it together and put it on Spotify and get hundreds of thousands of plays. I've literally seen it happen. So if the fans don't care, then what are you losing because you care, right? How much are you willing to be broke just because you insist on spending X number of hours melodining your vocals, spending X number of and if you're cunning about it, like, for example, like going with kind of like the folk song example, if you, this is such a weird specific example, but I hope that this kind of illustrates where I'm going with this. Like, for example, like acapella covers, as we know, are very complicated to arrange. There's so many layers that you need. There's so much thought that goes into mixing and tuning and editing the vocals so that they sound perfect. But there's also, like, for example, if you're doing like a sea shanty song, there's a way that you can be kind of sneaky about cutting corners with stuff like that. Like, let's say you're doing an acapella sea shanty cover, you could literally just kind of like stand in the back of the room and soon may the weatherman come, and you could just like, you could shout all of these different harmonies and not tune or edit any of them, and at the end, it like, you don't have to do any melodining, you don't have to do any not really any mixing. You just kind of stack layers of gang vocals and sing all the different harmonies, and it would probably sound sick, because
it
it's
would.
You know what I mean? Like, it's because it sounds like a crowd of people singing all these different harmonies together. And that's like what I mean to illustrate with that is that, like, you can come up with ways to kind of cheat the process and push content out faster that is unique and fun and sounds professional and polished, while skipping a lot of the traditional music industry. Okay, I have to hand edit 50 different vocal tracks before I can post this TikTok. It's like, somebody else has just posted 10 TikToks and 3 full Spotify songs in the amount of time that it took you to make one piece of content. And I don't mean that as a jab at people who make very polished content, but the reason I get so heated about this is because I personally know a lot of people who are so convinced that they have to make very polished content, and they're broke as fuck.
Yeah.
And they're mad about it, right? It's like it's
You
like
can't have both.
there is, yeah, you can't have both. If you want to make the super polished professional content, then you can't be mad when you're wasting too much time and not able to keep up with the algorithm.
That's so funny. Someone literally yesterday asked me what a soapbox of mine is, and I talked about that thing.
Yeah.
You can't be angry about both sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
You got to pick one.
Yeah.
And stick to it. Yeah, I've thought a lot about making like really simple covers of stuff, because like my solo work is opera.
Yeah.
Like that's my main thing, is being a professional opera singer. That's my main goal. The YouTube, although wonderful and like very legitimate as like financial support now, as a secondary thing, but opera's the main thing. And I definitely don't have, between those two things, and being in the bass gang, I don't have the extra time to make really high quality covers and put them out. But I'm like learning guitar, and I'm thinking once that gets good enough, just doing like really simple acoustic covers and just singing like country music.
Yeah.
There's
even like you can like go on Fiverr and just like pay somebody $50 to just track the one acoustic guitar track for you.
Oh, I can do it now. One of my buddy George Washburn is like one of the great like up and coming guitarists in Nashville. Plays studios, goes on tour. He's fucking awesome, and he would do it in a heartbeat. So like that's another for sure another option. I've done one really high quality music video, and I don't regret it, even though like it flopped as far as the stats are concerned. But I made a cover of Enemy by Imagine Dragons, and I incorporated like my dubstep production background, and I incorporated the bass singer stuff, and I incorporated some opera stuff, and I raised $15,000 for it to do it with like a full on professional production company. And it is my absolute crowning achievement.
Sick.
Like, as a musical artist, and I watch it, and I'm still so proud of it. And it flopped, but I'm still so happy I did it. But like I can't keep doing it. I can't do it again and again. But like I'm very proud of that project,
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, sometimes you just got to do it for yourself. You know,
exactly.
But you got to know when you're doing it for yourself. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like you gotta like you gotta be at peace with, okay, I did this for myself, so I can't be mad if it doesn't do well.
I totally wasn't cool at the the first couple weeks. Just like stomping around like, how are people not seeing this? This is bullshit. But now, a year later in retrospect, I'm like, I'm still very proud of that. Wow.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, I've definitely had projects like that as well, but yeah, it's tough, man. Like it's basically like deciding like what your priorities are. It's as much like a soul searching thing as it is because everybody's so like reductive about it. Everyone's like, oh, I hate the algorithm, and being a content creator is miserable. It's so shallow. It's just trying to clickbait everybody's attention span. It's like, you're not wrong, but what is the alternative? You know what I mean? Like what, like you want a record label to just like get down on their knees and beg you to make your passion project, and then like and then you go on like that's a pipe dream, and record labels suck. Like record labels are with very few exceptions incredibly predatory and toxic. So like there isn't any better option for you other than to be an independent content creator trying to ride the waves of the algorithm. So basically what it boils down to is like, either you can hang or you can't hang. You know what I mean? Either like take advantage of your autonomy as an independent content creator and do something with that, or stay mad and stay broke. You know what I mean? Like you can have your day job and make your money and then make your passion projects. That was always allowed. But it's, you gotta, if you're mad, you gotta ask yourself, like, you gotta ask yourself about your own pride. You know what I mean? You gotta be like, oh, well, maybe I can admit to myself that I wanted people to like me for this, and I wanted to make money for this. But now, since you're bringing in these sort of selfish, non-artistic motives into your art, no one's entitled to pay you for music that they don't like. No
Yeah.
one's entitled to give you attention for music that they don't like. And if
Yeah.
you don't get the attention or the money,
You're right.
know,
Again, you kind of got to pick one. I don't think there's full artist in any kind of like commercialized medium. I don't think there's any like full artistic freedom.
right.
Like you
Well,
can get kind of close, but there's always going
yeah,
to be some angle to make more money or to make sure the video is successful or whatever.
right. And yeah, I don't know. It's just it's such a weird topic because it's like because like for a while I was trying to make like radio rock music, and uh and I kind of hit this point where I was like, I'm okay with making I'm okay with having a lower ceiling. uh, like I'm okay with limiting the maximum amount of money that I'll be able to make for my music, uh if I can not have to make radio rock. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I would rather make like an album of original sea shanties, knowing full well that my target audience is smaller, and the most money that I'm going to make is going to be 5 million streams per song, which without a record label and without a ton of employees is actually a crap ton of money for one person.
No kidding.
But then none of those sea shanties are ever going to get the 500 million streams that that one of these radio rock bands gets. But I'm at peace with that because that's like, I don't need that. I'm not aiming for that. I'd rather like I'm choosing my lane. I'm choosing my priorities. I would rather do the sort of piratey original music that I love doing rather than trying so hard to hit the maximum amount of money that you could ever make for rock music, which by itself kind of necessitates that you have a record label and necessitates that you do all of these things that might actually lose you money while you're trying to make more money. So yeah, there's a lot of questions like that I think that like the intermediate content creators who know how to edit, they know how to produce, they know how to write or sing or play or whatever. I think there's a lot of questions that a lot of people I know never sit down and answer those questions. They're just kind of blindly mad about the way that being a content creator is.
Blind rage.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's tough, man.
It's definitely tough. All right, let's shift gears. I was a huge Magic the Gathering fan as a kid. My friends and I, that was our main. We played all the card games, but that was our main one. I have some friends who like still actively collect and play now. I just have all my old decks that, you know, get their teeth kicked in by the new guard, but still love the game. So how did that project come up, and what's the status on that, and what can we expect from that?
Yeah, so I've been following the rise of the scene that calls itself nerdcore music for a long time. I don't know if you're familiar with sort of that idea. But for anybody listening who doesn't know, there's this whole massive bubble on the internet of kids that will make like fan songs about like a video game or a movie or something that they enjoyed, or an anime. So like, for example, there's a ton of people that will make like rap songs about anime characters. They'll like take like their favorite anime character and they'll make a rap song from that character's perspective. And then there's kind of like on the lower age number for target audience, you have like Minecraft music. You have like people that will actually, and like we laugh, but I know people who are buying their second house and a sports car because they made fucking Minecraft music, and it's a real thing on YouTube. There's dozens of artists that will make a techno song or a rap song based on their little Minecraft server or somebody else's Minecraft server. There's so much internet lore to unpack to explain to somebody who doesn't know about any of this stuff. But the point is, you're making songs that are inspired by an existing intellectual property, like a video game or something. And I started to see people that were making D&D songs, like basically like they'd play Dungeons and Dragons with their friends, and then they'd make a song about their character, or they'd make a song about an adventure that they went on or something like that. And I started seeing more and more stuff like this happening. And a good friend of mine, Gavin, Miracle of Sound, was doing this thing for a while where every time a new video game would come out that he liked, like say Diablo or something, he would make an original song that kind of feels like Diablo.
Cool.
And some of these songs end up being like hugely successful on the internet, to the point where like Gavin made I talk with Gavin about this a lot. Gavin made like a Viking folk song based on the Assassin's Creed Viking game, and it became so overwhelmingly popular that first people thought that it was in the official game soundtrack, and then people were making covers of the song that were like blowing up just because the song itself was so popular that there's certain people on TikTok where a big part of their career only exists because they made a cover of a Assassin's Creed Viking fan song that Gavin wrote. And then finally it kept getting, I think it's at like 80 million Spotify plays or something like that. Something ridiculous.
Wow.
And then it got so popular that now there's a whole wave of kids on TikTok who experienced this song somewhere that wasn't on Gavin's official channel. And they just assumed that this song was a genuine Viking folk song from the 1200s or whatever. And it's gotten so out of hand that Gavin will get accused of lying when he says that he wrote the song. So like just to illustrate, like making songs that are inspired by video games or inspired by anime or whatever is incredibly lucrative right now if you target the right people, like the right audiences and the right crowds and niches. And I also love Magic the Gathering. So I am friends with a couple of the designers and staff members who work with Wizards of the Coast for Magic the Gathering. And so I basically just hit them up and I was like, hey, I think that we should do this. And I showed them. So I was like, look, there's people making hundreds of thousands of dollars on the internet making songs about your properties.
Yeah.
You know, there's people getting millions of play. Like, so I sat down with like some of the influencer marketing people and I was like, look, like you guys, your job is literally to handle the influencer marketing for these brands, and these are influencers and they are doing like marketing for you by making songs. Let's see if we can do something like this. So basically I just talked them into trying that out and seeing if we could make some songs inspired by Magic the Gathering and see what people think of them. It was, I still can't believe it happened. We got to work with so many crazy, amazing musicians. And we got to write songs about some of the most pivotal story moments of all the Magic the Gathering lore that's come out recently.
Awesome.
And it feels good that brands are finally realizing how valuable content creators are, and partnering up with them, you know, because 10 years ago that something like that never would have happened. But now we live in a world where look, it's crazy, man. It's crazy that like it used to be that you'd have to sign a record label and the record label would own everything, and you would be lucky if you make, you know, 20% of the money that your own music makes. And now, because like clout has been monetized so well on the internet, and the size of somebody's audience as a marketing weapon is such a powerful tool, that now you'll get video games that will like approach content creators and be like, hey, here's $10,000, make a video that like showcases our product, whether that's a song, whether that's a let's play, whether that's a comedy sketch or anything. And I think it's worth adding to that session musicians, obviously you know this, but session musicians and like jingle like composers or whatever, like the type of people who are doing this who don't have clout usually get treated very badly by the industry. Like the people who get paid to make a soundtrack for a video game, or the people who get paid to record guitar for a video game, or write a sea shanty for a fantasy game or whatever, usually those people do not get paid well. Usually they do not get very many royalties unless you're super famous, and unless you're you know, who was it who did the Doom soundtrack? Mick Gordon. Unless you're one of these like very recognizable names, but that's kind of what I'm getting at, is that like it's the recognizable names who get paid well because they can leverage the fact that they're recognizable. So it's kind of like in some, you could see this as a bad thing or you could see it as a good thing, but like instead of trying to get your degree in sound design or whatever it is that you're trying to do, and then pushing a resume to a game company and hoping that they pay you minimum wage to make sound effects or score for their game or whatever, you can kind of just do whatever you love on the internet in a way that's smart enough that you get some clout. And then come back to that same company once you have clout and be like, hey, I have 200,000 fans. Pay me thousands of dollars, and I'm going to keep the rights to this music because you're not paying me for the asset itself. You're not paying me for the song. You're paying me because of all of the people that I can bring to see this song. You're paying me not because of my musical skills, but because my music skills are a vehicle for you to get more exposure and fans. So the whole formula of how musicians can make money from these brands is completely flipped. If you're able to take advantage of social media in the way that I have. I know that was a really long answer. You were asking about the Magic the Gathering thing, but that's basically the idea, right? Is that like they weren't paying us because they wanted songs to put in the game. It's a card game, right? They were paying us because this is like a marketing. It's an amazing marketing project, right? So we don't have anything else in the pipes right now with Magic the Gathering. I don't follow everything that's going on in that corporation, but I know that they're always trying different things and experimenting and what I do know, that's not something that I would really talk about publicly. But what I can say is that there's nothing else in the pipes right now, but I have nothing but love and respect for everybody at that company, and of course the company itself. I still play Magic constantly, and I am always ready to pick up the phone if they decide that they want to take another crack at doing some music stuff.
Very cool.
But
awesome. I want to talk a little about your singing and your voice. This is such a big part of what I talk about and cover on the channel. Like you definitely to me sound very much like a natural bass voice. Like that's where your bass voice sits. But you have obviously learned how to you've learned the some subharmonic kind of technique that you used in the cover of Centuries that you did with the bass gang, which is awesome. And you've also learned how to really extend your upper range, and do this kind of metal, rock belting kind of stuff with all that grit. Where did you kind of start on the singing, and did you just find that your voice had a natural affinity for the metal stuff, or did you actively pursue it? And going off that, are there things in your voice that you work on and are trying to strengthen, or have you kind of found your lands with your voice and really just like lean into those?
That's an incredible question. I definitely like hit a wall when I was a lot younger of having a natural bass voice, where I'm sure, like, as you know, like there aren't very many spaces in pop culture where natural bass voices are like welcomed,
Nope.
unless you get like typecast into like, you know, singing opera or singing villain songs
Yeah,
or
which is
like,
niche, very
right,
niche
right,
stuff.
like okay, I'm, you know, I'm gonna get typecast as the guy who always plays the villain in Broadway musicals
Yeah,
because that's the only way that I can be a
I'm
you know.
I'm always the old man or the bad
Yeah,
guy
yeah, yeah.
in
um
opera.
yeah, so and then of course there's rarely any popular singers like on the radio or whatever, who have lower voices again, unless you're getting typecast, unless it's like a super like baby lock them doors, you
I
know,
was gonna
like
say it's pretty much only
yeah,
country music.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
like country music, but like very like sort of romantic, masculine coded kind of
Yes.
country music. So, but then the one of the only other places where deep voices are kind of welcomed with open arms is heavy metal music.
Yeah.
And I always loved rock music growing up, and I didn't really have a pathway to try any of the other sort of roads there, the tiny little the tiny little gravel roads that bass singers were given in the
Yes.
2010s.
Yes.
But through that journey of like trying to push myself to sing rock music more expressively, I just naturally kind of pushed grit in different directions until my range started expanding slowly, um, to where now I feel like I've found a space where, ironically, uh, what I can do with my voice now is very sought after because there were so few bass singers trying to push into the singing space. Like the fact that I can push my high range and belt so well, there just aren't very many guys on the internet
Yeah.
that are natural bass baritones who can belt and enunciate properly in their higher register.
Yeah.
And part of that, like, because a lot of these bass singers, they have the choir background, they have the Broadway background or whatever, and they're incredible singers, but then belting and enunciating over a heavy metal song is completely different than
Yeah.
shaping your vowels for choir music or Broadway music or what have you. So I feel like I kind of like accidentally backed into a corner that ended up kind of being like where I built my kingdom.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, like there's nobody else trying to do this with this voice type and with this style of music. I'm gonna be the one to absolutely like pave the way.
Yeah.
Um, as far as things I'm trying to work on, I'm trying to work on my mixed range. For anybody listening, it's kind of when you sing with like a hybrid between your head voice or falsetto and your chest voice, and it's a really weird part of your register to control that's a lot easier to control if you're a tenor. but but yeah, I'm pushing my range upwards and trying to become more flexible to sort of mold my voice wherever I want it to go, to where I have, like, for example, like right now I kind of have like a belting range that caps out like around the I think, what is it, is middle C4.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like G4 is about where my belting range kind of caps out.
Yeah.
And that's been like going up by a semitone every 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
But
it's a
but
marathon.
then like above that, like maybe like an octave above that, I have like a falsetto range, but it's like a very distinct flip.
Yeah.
Like once I get past that G4 or whatever, then it's like, okay, I'm in falsetto now, and I'm strictly in falsetto now. So I'm trying to manipulate my voice better to create kind of this hybrid mixed voice range so that I can kind of transition better above the belting without being super falsetto-y.
Yeah.
So that's one of my main goals.
Cool.
I've been trying to push that upper range.
As far as grit, when you first started, it's the kind of singing that's often very taxing for people who are just
Yeah,
figuring out how to do it. But it's something I've said, I've never called it like a healthy method of
it's
phonation,
not. Yeah, it's
but
not.
I have called it, you can learn how to do it somewhat sustainably.
Yeah.
So that's the word I like to use when describing people who are really good at it. And I've cited you a number of times on my channel as someone who
Oh,
can,
thanks, man.
yeah, man, who can, like,
Yeah.
you know, reliably do it for a big studio session,
Yeah.
you know, and not completely destroy your voice. So like, what was the learning process like, and how did you kind of experiment and learn how far to push it, you know, before you're like, okay, I have to not sing for 3 days afterwards? Or
Yeah, I definitely did not learn it in a safe way. I definitely would not I would not recommend the way that I learned it, because what it is for anybody listening who's familiar with like the different types of your throat, it is a false chord grit. You are like legitimately like yelling and clenching your throat while you yell,
yeah,
while you're phonating. It's very it's like it's those the false chord muscles that you, if you get into an argument with someone, or if you're shouting at your dog to not eat the neighbor, it's that part of your throat that you're clenching, and it's
yeah,
why your throat hurts if you're yelling at somebody like that. But yeah, like pacing myself and not trying to go on tour and do it every night is really important. Drinking tons
yeah.
of water, and knowing when to stop. When I feel like I can't sustainably hit the notes anymore, I stop, come back tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then through literally like a decade of slowly, basically I learned it through belting. I learned it through like, which you should not do, by the way. Like it was basically like, oh, I'm trying to sing this rock song that's like a little bit out of my comfortable range. I'm just gonna push harder. And that's like the number one thing that you should never do when you're trying to learn how to
Great for
sing.
singing, yes.
But that is how I accidentally learned when I was a stupid kid who didn't have enough
Yeah.
vocal training. But through doing that so long and learning my own limits just through trial and error, eventually I got to a point where like, okay, now we're adding vibrato to that gritty
Yeah.
belt. And now we're like, since we're adding vibrato, we can kind of control it a little bit better. We can make sure that like it's
Consistent,
it's
supported.
consistent and supported, and making sure that like training to be able to turn on and off the grit, even like in between different syllables of a word.
Yep.
Like, so you're not just pushing the grit every syllable. You'll like sing cleanly, and then on that one money note, on that one belt note, you crush in with some of that false chord grit just for that one syllable. And there's other like little things that I do too. Like I save the grit for the end of the session.
Yeah.
I'll usually do like several full takes of the song with no grit at all, and then right at the end I'll kind of go back in and like paste in some grit in places that it might need. So it's really it's like sprinting. You know what I mean? It's like if going on tour is like running a marathon, what I do with my grit is like sprinting, and you can't run a marathon at full sprint.
Yeah.
You know, like you will pass out and shit blood. You know what I mean? It's like you have to be smart about it, and you have to know your own voice. You have to know when to sprint and when to stop, and how to do that. So I'm really proud of it. I'm really happy with the grit I'm able to get. I'm really proud of how I've been able to kind of learn that, but it's definitely, it's not safe. And I'm not even, I'm even more harsh than you are when people ask me about it. I think I always, I never even tell people how to do it. I'm just like, don't do it until like come back when you can show me that you're a really confident and good singer, and then we'll talk about how to add grit. You know what I mean? Because I didn't add any grit until I had been in choirs for like 5-10 years and was already recording, like trying to like building up experience recording my own voice for years. So
well, that's the thing. I mean, it's something I've been interested in. It's not something I can really experiment with while I'm in the middle of like an opera production.
Right.
But like, obviously, like the training for opera is fucking absurd. It's like the most trained genre of singing, and it has to be. So like, I'm definitely at a point now where I'm very secure with like vocal strength and breath support and like perfect vowel shaping and everything the tongue's doing and the soft palate and all this stuff. And it's like, I would love to be able to find some time to like learn how to add some grit.
Yeah.
Because like I love the sounds you make, and I've always loved like big, like hardcore belting. It's like the
Yeah.
coolest, like most intense thing. It can add so much to a song and a cover, so much excitement beyond
Yeah.
a clean phonation. So it's something I hope to experiment with at some point. I just know I can't do it in the middle. I can't start working on it when I've got, performances coming up.
Right. Yeah, it's fun, but yeah, I could do a little demonstration if you want. I usually don't do this, but
Yeah, please. I'm sure
it's
everyone would love to hear it.
you kind of, it's the starting point to find your false folds, which is the way that I add grit, is to kind of like right. It's like when you're sighing, you're really angry, or
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And then you have to be able to phonate through that. You have to be able to sing a pitch and crunch in on that. Right.
Okay.
So
Okay.
right, you can kind of hear like
Oh,
going,
the microphone. I think
yeah,
it
yeah,
gets too loud, so the microphone just like completely cut
yeah,
out.
I can turn it down here. Right.
Yeah, I got it that time.
Yeah, so you can kind of like hear like where I'm clenching my false folds.
Yeah.
And even just doing that to like kind of figure out where it sits, it won't, if you do it right, it shouldn't really hurt. It should just kind of tickle. But then the more you do it, you're literally just like you're like tightening a balloon and letting the air squeeze out, and the flaps of the balloon are hitting each other, and that
Right.
is eventually gonna hurt your voice. But
Yeah.
and then adding vibrato to that, you can kind of like it gets so much more consistent once you add vibrato, because like you can kind of like change your vowel shape, and then you're not actually like, you're not pushing through your false folds for the entire time.
Yeah.
You're just kind of like,
it totally cut out again when you went
oh.
when you went to the vibrato.
Yeah, anyway, yeah. That's point is vibrato is important, and knowing all these different techniques and breath support is really important.
Yeah. Go watch Centuries by the Bass Gang featuring Jay Young if you want to see some great rock belty vibrato.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. I mean, we at least got to see the first part of it.
Yes.
So I really appreciate that explanation.
The darn Zoom noise canceling.
It doesn't have a chance. It doesn't have a chance. I'm going to hit you with one more question. Then we got a few questions from Patreon.
Yeah.
But first, you were talking a little bit earlier about like timing to turn out a cover, and how like if one takes too long, you could have just done a second one.
Yeah.
What is your schedule like for making a new cover, like from the arrangement to the recording to the post process to the video editing? How long does all that take?
Usually about 3 days total.
Wow, that's short.
Yeah. So and it didn't always go that fast. There's two ways that I usually do it. The first way is I have a freelance arranger and producer who works with me a lot. 16 in mono is his internet name, and he works just as fast as me, if not faster, and he's more experienced with mixing and instrumental arranging than I am. So especially with rock music and metal music, so a lot of times if I need to pump out a cover fast, I'll throw money at him. He'll do the instrumental arrangement, all the drum programming, guitar tracking. He'll do that usually in one day, sometimes two. He forks it over to me. I'll usually spend one day, sometimes two, tracking lead vocals and then tracking harmonies. I'll take as many shortcuts as I can. If it's a song where I'm singing clean the whole time, I'll sing a well enunciated expressive take and pitch correct it to save time and save vocal energy.
Yeah.
If it's a more dynamic, expressive Broadway sort of a song where I have to sing with less autotune because it's more sort of free form, or if it's more gritty, then it'll usually take me like an extra day of vocal tracking to get all the takes of all the parts that I need without relying on shortcuts. And then usually I mix I mix very heavily with mix templates. So when I open up a new project, it'll have all of the drums and guitars and everything dialed in just the way that I like it. So I can literally sit down on this drum set, play through the drum part, touch it up a little bit. That's 2 hours, 3 hours. Plug the guitar in, run through the guitar part a couple times for a couple layers, touch it up a little bit. Guitars are done. Chicken peck in the bass on this keyboard here. That's 30 minutes. Guitar, bass, and drums are done. Sometimes that's the whole arrangement. And then a couple hours of vocal tracking and vocal editing and mixing.
You do all that though.
Yeah. So when I don't hire Brandon, then yeah, like even yesterday, yesterday I spent about an hour tracking drums for a metal sea shanty cover that I'm doing, and then I spent probably 3 hours tracking and recording guitars, and then I programmed bass in between games of Overwatch with my girlfriend. And then sometimes I'll add like some orchestral strings, but that's literally just like playing a couple keyboard takes with a string voice on.
Yeah.
A big part of it for me is picking the right plugins, because if I have my perfect drum setup dialed in my computer, then I'm never wasting any time tweaking it. I'm just playing the drums with my settings already dialed in. Same with guitar. I'm never messing with guitar tones. I plug in the guitar, I play the guitar part into my perfect tone that I've designed for my template, and then it's done. And same with vocals. I never spend any time vocal mixing because my settings are already dialed in by the time I'm tracking.
Amazing.
So I know exactly how I'm going to layer and mix my harmonies, and I already have those tracks ready to go. So I can literally just record the harmonies and drag them into the harmony tracks, and it's already dialed in and panned exactly the way that I like it with all the right plugins. So setting up a workflow like that is the most important thing for my speed. And then shoot video in the garage, edit it together, slap on some color correcting.
And do you edit the video as well?
Sometimes I edit my own videos, but I do have an editor now who edits for some of my clients, and also oftentimes edits for me. And it usually takes them about a day to edit the video. So if I need to do everything myself, I can do the whole process in 2 to 3 days. Otherwise, if I'm hiring other people, then sometimes we're waiting for people to finish up different parts of the project. But that also frees up, again, talking about time management and pumping out like a high output of content. Then if I'm hiring somebody else to do the drums and guitar and bass or the video editing, that's half a day worth of my time that I can now spend working on the next project. So I'm super like streamlining my time management is like one of my like biggest strengths as a content creator. I feel is like I don't waste any time.
No, that is a shockingly quick turnaround for the quality, especially for the quality that you put
Thank
out.
you, man. Thank you so much.
Of course. So do you try to get way ahead on stuff, or do you try to just like week to week put out one thing, or what?
I'm in a constant cycle of getting way ahead and then getting too comfortable with the fact that I'm way ahead and working on side projects, and then getting behind and then needing to get ahead again. But yeah, I usually try to get ahead. We've been changing a lot. Like we've been going back and forth with like trying different types of content. So it's been kind of weird lately. Just because like we'll have an idea. We'll be like, okay, well, we have this thing done that we want to post, but then it'll be like, oh, but we haven't posted a sea shanty in a while, and it seems like people really want to see another sea shanty. Maybe let's hold off on what we're going to do this week and speed run a cover in the next 3 days or whatever. So
cool.
Yeah.
Bass Gang actually has a Jolly Sailor Bold coming out soon.
Hey, nice. That's awesome.
Should be good. All right, let's get into a few Patreon questions, some of which I'm sure we've answered already. This is really interesting. This is the first one that came in. I thought this was a really interesting question. This is from Jan Cates, Dan in Australia. And she said, if you could collab with someone who's no longer living, who would it be and why? So an artist that has passed away, like a Mozart or, whatever. Pretty cool question.
Yeah, that is a cool question.
I mean, for the kind of music you make, I mean, I'm sure pretty much everyone that's done it is still living, or almost everyone.
Yeah. For specifically heavy metal music. I'd probably want to work with a jazz musician.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of the guys that wrote probably yeah, I don't know.
Like
Like
Irving
like
Berlin or something
yeah,
like
like an Irving Berlin or something like that. Like co-write a song with like an Irving Berlin or something like that.
that. That'd be
That
sick.
would probably be my answer, because I'm
Cool.
not really super drawn to like, yeah, all of the modern artists that I look up to for the most part are still alive, and I'm not really drawn to just working with singers.
Yeah.
And pre Beatles, pretty much everybody was just a singer unless you go to like jazz music. So
Yeah. 10 Pin Alley.
yeah,
Cool. All
yeah,
right. Irving Berlin. Songwriting with
yeah,
Irving Berlin.
yes.
All right. This is from Mortius, who's he's a fellow kind of reaction analysis guy on
Sweet.
YouTube. Um, this is basically his question is, what has been your experience working with Caleb? He loves all the stuff you guys have done together.
Yeah. Yeah, Caleb's great. I'm kind of doing a little tour sort of thing with Caleb right now.
Awesome.
Where we just perform at a bunch of anime conventions, and it's been going great. Caleb is one of my closest friends in the business. I cold called him. I emailed him uh just out of nowhere when we first started our YouTube channels, because we were both doing Disney covers. And I was like, hey, we should work together because we're both doing Disney covers. And he was like, yeah, all right. And now we're now we're like working together like every week, and I produce for him, and and we hang out all the time,
That's
and
awesome.
we were playing Overwatch last night. But but yeah, he's one of the best singers I work with. He's incredibly smart. Um his like vocal inflection and his instincts with like singing are really on point. Um and we understand each other really well as collaborators, to the point where like I'll arrange something and just be like, Caleb, here, sing this verse, and I can just kind of like throw stuff at him, and not, I can always trust that he'll kill it and do
Yeah.
exactly what, what I would have wanted him to do.
Awesome.
And I hope that he would say the same of me, because I'm producing a lot of
You
his
know what?
covers
I'll
now.
I'll have to get him on the channel and ask him.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, this is from LKH. It's just her username for Patreon. Dream project you want to do but can't yet. So can't instead of haven't. So I guess like something you want to do but just don't have the means for at the moment.
Yeah. Good question. Well, I'm very lucky to be able to say that I think all of the projects that are my dream projects, for the most part, I do have the means to do, and I am slowly trying to do them.
That's awesome.
But let me think. I I I had some delusions of wanting to make a show kind of in the same veins as like Metalocalypse, or something like a musical sort of a show. Um yeah. I do, yeah. So like doing some kind of like a musical, like storytelling sort of Broadway style. I think that Broadway as a format has not integrated well into the internet yet. And I think that like why hasn't somebody made, I mean, I'm sure people have tried, but like why isn't it more commonplace to basically make like port Broadway musical style media into basically YouTube format? You know what I mean? Like why aren't people making like musical short films more often? You know what I mean? I think that'd be fun to try. But in terms of can't do yet, there's not much that I can't do yet. Yeah, but
The fully
probably,
animated show is a
yeah,
good.
fully animated show is a good one, I
You
think.
need like a few mil to burn on that.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah. I had an idea for a show, and I was actually working on a pilot, but it wasn't, it was a very like first draft sort of an idea. It was very like Metalocalypse meets Deadpool, sort of a fourth wall breaking musical show. But yeah,
maybe someday.
Yeah.
It's a good point about the musical theater translating online, because it could. I know why opera doesn't, mainly because opera, because it's unamplified. It's just raw voice against orchestra. That is the magic of opera that is only in opera.
And the room, like the acoustics of the room.
Yeah, it's just supposed to be captured live, and you can't tell what's amazing about an opera voice other than like technique, but you can't tell size of voice.
Yeah,
like how it interacts with the room without microphones. That you get that live. That's why opera companies never hire virtually. You have to sing for them. You can get through the pre-screenings virtually, but you have to sing for them in the house to get hired. So I know why opera doesn't translate, but musical theater is all amplified, so that like totally could work, I think.
Man, that's such a, I know we've already been talking for an hour and a half here, but that is such an interesting like talking piece to me about like, because many times I'm like super vocal about like how I feel that the internet is like a really big net positive and for artists and for musicians, but that's really interesting to think about, like how there are things like opera that like you just can't like really put on the internet properly.
No.
And that's not to suggest that like we're losing that, but it's definitely like, since it's not monetizable on the internet, there's definitely like an element of like, how do you get people to care about how special that is? You
have to get people in the space. That's what most opera companies are working on. Just getting people in the space, because a lot of people that do find it are pretty stunned and shocked and amazed and become super fans. But just not that many people find it, and it's harder and harder to get people out. Like you gotta, I mean, you have to have a gun to someone's head just to get them to click on a link. Much less have them get in the car and go to a theater. So there's a lot of work to be done there in the opera world, but people do find it, there's this big fear that like once the old people die, there are no more opera fans. But the thing about opera is it just takes people a while to find it and to appreciate it. But there are always new fans coming up, and then, there'll be the old people and they'll die, and then there'll be more fans coming up. It's just generally older, more mature people take a liking to it, because it does kind of take a sort of patience. It's a pretty long form performance, most of them. It's a fucking cool art form, though. I'll say that. I wouldn't.
That's incredible.
All right, we've got one more. We answered the question part of this, which was how much practice does it take for you to achieve your high notes, or does it come naturally? So we squared that circle. And so this is really just a comment from the guy named Isaac. He says, I've been watching since you started your journey, and I especially love your Disney villain covers. So that's from Isaac.
Awesome. Hell yeah. Thank you, Isaac.
All right. That is going to wrap it up. So thank you all so much for tuning in. It's been an absolute joy. I feel like this is a really wonderful chat. We just
absolutely,
like,
man.
So many cool things. And like behind the scenes, behind the curtain about like the industry and what big creators like you are up against. So really, really insightful. I think people are going to really enjoy it. So before we sign off, any final words to the fans, the audience, young creators, whatever you want to say?
Get out there and do it. There's so many kids and adults, kids and adults that I meet that want to be doing stuff like this. And a lot of times people hold themselves back because they are embarrassed of the production quality, or they're embarrassed of the, like, don't let anything, especially yourself, stop you from diving in. Because it like we mentioned earlier, you really could like blow up and make a 6-figure income just by singing into your iPhone. And I can't emphasize enough how cool that is, because like, there's no barrier of entry at all. There's literally nothing stopping you other than how smart you are to take advantage of the systems that we have to navigate. But that's just knowledge. Learning how the YouTube algorithm works, learning how the TikTok algorithm works, learning how to put your stuff on Spotify and how to get people to go over there. It's just Like you can learn that. There's no magic button that Jonathan Young is pressing that makes him get millions of plays on Spotify. I just started throwing stuff on the internet until it started to work.
Yeah.
So I would encourage anybody listening who wants to do anything artistic to make peace with sucking for a little bit, because the rewards will be there. So
amazing.
yeah.
All right, man. Thank you so much for joining. I'll keep you posted on the release. Right now, I think looking like early October or late September.
Awesome.
Releasing one of these episodes every 2 weeks at a pace that I know I can keep up, and we'll see if that changes. But probably late September, early October. Such a joy chatting with you, man. Glad we got to have a one-on-one for a while.
Yeah, absolutely.
And best of luck with everything. And
yeah,
man,
what part of California are you chilling in right now?
Well, I'm in Santa Barbara, but just for a few days.
Okay.
I'm about to move to Phoenix to start working with Arizona Opera.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Phoenix is a very short skip away.
It is actually, yeah, for sure. And I'm
Santa
sure
Barbara,
I'll be up in LA for auditions.
Yeah.
You're in LA, right?
Yeah, I'm in LA. Yeah.
Near Colin?
Yeah, I'm 20 minutes away from Colin.
Amazing. I finally got to meet him. I was out there for a voice competition, and we went out to a whiskey bar and just hung out. It was fucking awesome.
Yeah, man. Anytime you're in LA, definitely let me know.
All right, brother. Great talking to you, man.
Awesome. Talk to you later, brother. Peace.